Thanks for joining me on episode 839 of the Inspired Stewardship Podcast.
Hey friends, my name is Dr. Gary Johnson, and I serve as the Executive Director of E2 Effective Elders. I challenge you to invest in yourself, in others, and develop your influence while impacting the world by using your time, your talent, your treasures to live out your calling. Having the ability to grow yourself through self-leadership is key. And one way to be inspired to do that is to listen to this, the Inspired Stewardship Podcast with my friend, Scott Mader.
Straining forward, they stop owning their own development, they stop owning their own opportunities, they stop looking for new challenges, and eventually they become unemployed. Or they stagnate in the same position and stay there for decades until it disappears, and then they wonder what happened because the world changed and they didn't change with it.
Welcome and thank you for joining us on the Inspired Stewardship Podcast. If you truly desire to become the person who God wants you to be, then you must learn to use your time, your talent, and your treasures for your true calling. In the Inspired Stewardship Podcast, you will learn to invest in yourself, invest in others, and develop your influence so that you can impact the world.
In today's episode about investing in yourself through stewarding your talent, I talk with you about why having a self-employed mindset is always beneficial. I share some of the top mindsets that really describe the self-employed mindset, and I also share what happens all too often when you are actually self-employed instead.
You've heard me talk about developing your talent, and one of the best ways to do that is through books. But if you're like most people today, it's hard to find the time to read. And that's why today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Go to inspiredstewardship.com/audible to sign up, and you can get a 30-day free trial. There's over 180,000 titles to choose from, and you can pick one and listen your way to developing your talents via Audible. That's inspiredstewardship.com/audible to get your free trial and listen to great books the same way you're listening to this podcast.
One of those interesting things that I came about reading a few years ago in Thou Shalt Prosper by Rabbi Daniel Lapin is this idea of having a self-employed mindset. What's interesting is at the time I was actually working in a corporate job, and I thought it was weird to read something about having a self-employed mindset, even if you're working for someone else. But then as I read it and began to study it more and look at other people's takes on this, I recognized that what was being said was actually something that was true. And it's something that to some extent I had done before, but I needed to do it even more. And it's this idea of whether you work for someone else, whether you run your own business, whether you're doing something on the side, it doesn't matter. There's some mindset things and attitude things that actually serve you well to develop no matter what. And I've seen this play out when I've been working with clients, and they'll tell me that they have a great, quote, secure job. And that's one of the reasons that oftentimes people don't want to go into business for themselves is about the security. And we'll talk some about that tomorrow. But the truth is that what I encourage them to do is develop the core mindsets around self-management, self-employment, self-development, and it would help them grow even in their career. And I've seen it play out time after time. So let's talk about some of those actual mindsets. What are some of the thought processes that we need to have what I call a self-employed mindset? Number one, you have to recognize that you are responsible for your own future, for your own development. Whether you're working for someone else or working for yourself, you're responsible for creating your own future. No one else, not your boss, not the government, not the president, not your best friend, not your spouse. And this includes things, not only things like your paycheck, but your promotions, your bonuses, your benefits, your retirement. Don't count on anyone else doing it. Now, that doesn't mean you can't seek advice. That doesn't mean you can't seek help. That doesn't mean you can't work with others, but you're responsible for it. You have to own that. You have to work on yourself first. And that brings us to number 2. No one owes you anything. Again, you're not owed anything. This mindset of, I deserve it. I work hard, so I deserve that. Or I just need to wait until something else comes from outside. And once they recognize my genius, then I'll be compensated. But the truth is, nothing happens without work. Nothing happens without effort. You are not owed anything. Which brings you to number 3. Your income is out there somewhere. You've got to go find it. And again, from self-employed or salaried, oftentimes salaried people begin to think, I'm just owed this money, and all I have to do is go through the motions. Just show up on Monday, leave on Friday, and everything's fine. But the truth is, even if you're employed, if that's what you truly believe, you won't really be excelling. You won't really be growing as much as you could. And because of that, you won't get promotions, you won't get raises, you won't get new opportunities. The money doesn't just come rolling in. You actually have to do something to go get it. And that gives you that mindset of the income is out there. What am I going to do? Which brings us to number 4. The truth is, you're always going to be faced with challenges where you don't know the answer. You don't know what to do. You don't know what the next step is. But if you have the mindset of, I can figure it out, I can learn it, I can go get training from someone else, I can get help from someone else, I can find it on YouTube, whatever it is, I can figure it out. I'll get to know what I need to know, even though I don't know it today. Which, again, now brings us to the next one. If you're constantly learning, you need to surround yourself with people who know things. You need to get into mastermind groups. You need to get into networking groups. You need to network with other people that do the same or similar business as you. You need to surround yourself with people who are already doing it. And if you're in an employment situation, same thing. You need to find and seek out the people that are already doing it. You need to find mentors. You need to find people that will help you develop. Because the truth is, you're going to have problems, you're going to have challenges, and you're going to have to overcome them. And if you have the mindset of, I can, and again, not necessarily alone, that is why you need to connect with others. The truth is, a lot of times we think of success as luck. That person was so lucky. But the truth is, you have good luck, you have bad luck. We all have luck all the time. The truth is, whether or not you have the mindset of, what am I going to do to seize these opportunities? That's the power. Because the truth is, there's no security. Whether you're self-employed or whether you're employed by others, security doesn't really happen. We'll talk about that again tomorrow. Because you've got to have the mindset of, you're never going to quit. You're going to focus on the things that are important. You're going to grow yourself. You're going to live and work through these opportunities. But all too often, what happens instead is people sit back, they get a job, they get a career, they get something to do, and then they step forward and they say, now I'm just deserving this. I'm secure. I've got a great job. Everything is fine. And they sit back and they stop developing themselves. They stop working as hard. They stop straining forward. They stop owning their own development. They stop owning their own opportunities. They stop looking for new challenges. And eventually they become unemployed. Or they stagnate in the same position and stay there for decades until it disappears. And then they wonder what happened because the world changed and they didn't change with it. But if you develop a self-employed mindset, then you're constantly growing and striving. And no matter what, you're prepared for the next change. Because the truth is, if you're not, you recognize the idea that you can become prepared. You can learn what you need to learn. You can master those skills and you can overcome those challenges. Thanks for listening.
Thanks so much for listening to the Inspired Stewardship Podcast. As a subscriber and listener, we challenge you to not just sit back and passively listen, but act on what you've heard and find a way to live your calling. If you like this episode on the stewardship of talent, you can go over to inspiredstewardship.com/talent and sign up for our 5-week series on the stewardship of talent. Or if you're in the U.S., you can text 44222 talent tips. That's talent tips to 44222 and get those tips. Until next time, invest your time, your talent, and your treasures. Develop your influence and impact